Isn't it what your swarms look like here? It's swarm season for us. I came back from, oh God, some other country, I think Serbia or something I was at, and drove in the afternoon, and there was nobody home. I looked around and I said, "What's that over there?" And I said, "Wow, that is a good size swarm right there." So we went over and stacked some boxes underneath it and put a deep of drawn comb beneath it. And I grabbed the branch and I shook it, and it was pretty impressive. They weren't upset or anything like that. And it filled that box up. So I put a second box on, and I filled that box up, and I put a third box on, and closed that one up. Next morning, there was still a big beard out in front of the three boxes. Okay, so it's what happens is you'll have swarms combined sometimes. For a while, when I was catching swarms, shaking them through queen excluders because we were getting large swarms. My maximum was 18 queens out of one swarm. So those are swarms that have combined. So another swarm, there's a big one we had, it moved from one tree to another, and on its movement, dropped out little walnut-sized balls of bees on the ground. And I picked them up. I picked up 7 different balls, each one with a virgin queen. Started 7 nukes and got 7 queens out of it, out of that swarm. I don't know how many were still left in the swarm when it finally settled down, but they get big. Another one we had, it was the body size of my wife when she stood next to it, and it broke a 1-inch branch, a trunk on an almond tree, just the weight of that swarm. Again, combined swarms. Anyway, but we filmed me shaking down. It didn't bother me at all, but the camera lady got a couple of them in her hair. She had dark hair, and so it went kind of wild. So I was demonstrating how we manage bees not wearing very much gear. I got to take this hide off here so I can look at you. Okay. So we have at our county fair, I built a booth. It's a hexagonal booth of black wire see-through screen, stands 10 feet tall, and we put a hive in there. And there's tricks to this. If you want to try it, if you want to try this at your fair, let me know and I'll give you some tricks. But the fair loves it. It's the most popular exhibit. The bees fly free out of the top of the screen. And then once a day, one of us, oh man, why does this keep falling off my belt? One of us goes into the enclosure and does, whoops, wrong way. You want this on the, yeah, that's right.
It's the other way around.
It is the other way. Oh, this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That way I don't stand on my head. We open up a hive and give a demonstration, and you can hold, I can stand here and hold the frame up to the screen, and all the faces are right against the screen. It's a totally different experience than our 2 observation hives behind glass. When they're behind glass, people walk in and go, oh God, those bees, good thing they're not getting out. They feel still fearful of the bees. When we do this, and you're in there with no gear on, and you're going through it and moving the bees around, it changes everything. It's the best public demonstration we have for the public for taking the fear away with bees. I had see them right here? We had a queen marked with bright pink paint, and I was holding up a bunch of little kids right there and showed it, and a little girl goes, oh, and she points to the pink bow in her head. She says, yeah, it's me. Everybody cracked up. Anyway, the bee people always say, well, why aren't the bees attacking you? And I say it for the same reason that you're not attacking me. You are far more of a threat to me. Okay? So what the question is, why aren't you attacking me? Because all animals, no matter how gentle, can have a response threshold, and they go into defending themselves, okay? And that little dog turns right back into a wolf if you know how to pass the response threshold. So when you understand, if you understand the cues that initiates the response threshold and avoid those cues, then you can work bees without them stinging you most of the time. So you work bees like this to harvest the honey, they're going to respond defensively, okay? On the other hand, don't make the bees feel threatened. I had a group of school kids over, little kids last week, And every one of them got a double handful of bees scooped up out of a tub and put into their hands. And they all just go, oh, that is so cool, so cool, so cool. Changes their perception of bees entirely. They do this with kids and adults all the time. Again, there's tricks to doing that, okay? Don't just try it if you don't know what you're doing. But the kids just love it. So understand which cues trigger the defensive response. What bees recognize as a threat? Honeybees do not experience the world as you do. We are mainly sight-oriented, but we also understand what we're seeing. They see an entirely different spectrum, and they don't know when they fly out. They will never recognize you as a human being or as a beekeeper or different from a tree or a rock or anything else. So how do they differentiate you? Because they don't sting trees and they don't sting rocks, but they will sting us. How do they differentiate you from a tree? Movement. Movement is the number one thing right there. So keep that in mind. And don't flatter yourself. Your bees will never get to know you. Honeybee only lives about 35 days during the spring and summer on average. So if you're not in your hive every few days, they never get to know you. You're always the invader. So honeybees evolved with some very dangerous predators. As far as we know, it appears that they evolved in Africa and moved north. They could have been in Europe. But anyway, there's the honey badger, there's bears. But those predators are limited by not being able to get into hollow trees. So only one predator that can work their way into hollow trees, and that is the human being. So the only honeybees that survived were those that were able to repel human beings. So they particularly cue in on human beings. The way we stand, the color of our hair are sensitive points where if you want to stop a human being, you aim for the eyes, the nose, the ears, or the lips. Those are the best places to repel a human being, and that's what honeybees do exactly. So what you want to do is you want to avoid, I'm sorry, I put the wrong one on. This one I did for the London Honey Show. And they said, oh, unless you have the copyright on every one of these pictures, we have to take it out. So I put these X's on there. I forgot to remove the X's, so I didn't show those. So any kind of jarring, jolting, but mainly rapid movement, any kind of little twitching. So when I'm working next to somebody in a yard, a beginner, and we're working hives side by side, I said, stop that. You're twitching. I can see it out my corner of my eye, and you're going to get stung. Ow! They get stung. I said, and they're working along, and I say, stop, you're still twitching, you're still twitching. If I can see it, I guarantee you the bees will say, bam. He goes, how come I'm getting stung all the time, you're not? I said, you're twitching. You got to stop that twitching. That tells the bees, if that bee is investigating you and you're a tree, you don't twitch. If you twitch, that says, oh, I'm a threat. Otherwise, you wouldn't be twitching. Okay? So protective gear, it is good. Until you develop immunity to bee stings, so you no longer swell up or itch, okay? You still want to avoid bees stinging you in the eye, but as soon as you put a veil on, your ability to spot eggs, to spot the queen, to spot disease in the hive is really, really hampered. It's very hard to see through a veil. I can't hardly stand looking for a queen, if I have to put a veil on. So they do aim for the face. Come on. Okay. Oh, let's go back. Oh, geez. Oh, I see. We're slow on this. Okay. This would be a delay from that. Okay. So let me go to the one on this one. Okay, I'm going to hold here now. Okay. That's a great saying. There was a guy on BL chat group some years ago, and he had learned that if you hold a skunk up by the tail, it can't squirt you unless you lower it down and it touches its front legs to the top of the beehive, and then it can blast you. And he says, well, you've got to be dumb about it. You better be tough. So anyway, the same thing. These parts are the most sensitive parts in your body. So until you develop an immunity that you're no longer swelling up or itching on your hands and arms, go ahead and put the veil on. We just tried for my new lady friend. She just puts a really light little mosquito net, the black mosquito nets. And that's enough most of the time for her. So wear a veil until you no longer react to the venom. So like when I have the school kids over, I do put veils on them. Not that they really need it at all. Okay, so now pay attention to what the bees are telling you. Both your hands and your face, they will generally give you warning bumps before they actually sting. A bee dies if it stings. It would prefer not to die. So if it can get you to leave with a warning bump, that's what the bees like to do. So just be aware of that. When they fly in, this bee's not going to sting me, or this bee over here is not going to sting me. They're going to come up and give me a bump off the face. And I will just gently turn around and walk away, and that tells, there's nothing further beyond that. You especially notice them on your hands and arms, yeah. No, not on the bump. High-pitched buzz is after they land. So when they land your hair in the high-pitched buzz, that's a kamikaze bee. That means there's no sense pushing out your hair because it's going to fly. And the rule we have at home, I have with beginners, I say, okay, if you get a bee in your hair and it's putting out that high-pitched buzz, you're not allowed to swipe it out of your hair, because if you do that, it's going to fly to this person's eyes and sting them in the eye, and then they have the right to punch you in the nose. So, so you have to just pinch it and kill it, and quick throw it away so you don't get the alarm pheromone in your hair, puff of smoke in your hair. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I've got a couple of new hives, the small hives, and I don't move fast, and I often just stand there and watch them, and a bee will come up at me, and it has that sound that doesn't, sounds aggressive.
Okay.
And I walk away. I don't walk away too slowly. I don't run. And it follows me a certain distance. If I just stood there and did nothing, would they go away?
In general, you stand still and do nothing. You don't make any movement or walk through bushes. But the other trick, and I'll show another trick in a moment. Okay. And if you are working a hive and the bees come out and they follow you for a ways, that's called following. That is death to any queen in our operation. It's called following behavior. So the Africanized bees are famous for that. They'll follow you for a half a mile if you disturb the hive. European bees, you can breed for bees that do not do any following. So if you are bothering a hive, there's bees around your face, and you walk 20 feet away and they're still around your head, that's called following behavior, and that's a no-go for any of us. We would kill that queen immediately. That queen, we don't want that genetics in our operation. That's called following behavior. Okay, so that not the individual bee, but if you are, sounds like you're new with bees. So if you have a hive and they are defensive and they hold that defense, even if you are away, they follow you, then that's following behavior. If you have a number of hives, if you have followers that may recruit other bees.
Which hive it was from?
You know, that's kind of funny, because we have a death sentence thing for us. We take a 3 index card and you write HOT on it, you put on top of the hive. That means the next time we come through, we kill that queen and requeen the hive, okay, because it was hot. I find that when the crew does that, they often label the wrong hive. It was the previous hive they worked. So they got in it, did something, closed it up, go to the next hive, and then they start getting stung. But it wasn't from the hive that they marked, it was the previous hive that they defended. So in answer to your question, how do you tell? Observation, okay? So defending bees, the other thing that they do is they go for the top of the moving object, because if you have a human threat, the best place to sting is above the neckline, okay? That's your most pain, I'll tell you right now, the most painful spots in your whole body to get stung all are above the neckline. There's no spot by body that hasn't been stung multiple times, and these are always the most painful. So they move to the top of the moving objects. Here's my son Eric doing everything wrong with a dark shirt on. So the dark color will draw any defending bees, and then they'll go right to the top. So in answer to your question, sir, just bend over. Okay, no more bee around your head. No more bee around your head if you bend over. Bend over and walk away. If you have bees flying around your head, just bend over and walk away. So your head is no longer the top of the moving object. That will prevent you from getting stung in the head or on the face. Very, very simple. Walk away, go to some bushes if you can, okay? If I have somebody next to me, like somebody was up with a young child on their shoulders, and a bee starts flying around that. First thing you do, I just walk up to them and I do this. And then I walk away, wiggling my hand. That will draw that bee right away from those people, okay? So any movement draws them away. Other thing you do, if you want to transition from wearing a veil, just get wraparound safety glasses, that hug you right there, and that will protect your eyes so you won't get stung in the eye itself. And no sunglasses. That just amplifies. That just makes them a target. No sunglasses, no black wristwatches. Anything that looks like an eye will be a target for the guard bees. Here's Eric and me side by side. It pisses him off because we walk through bee yards all the time, and he goes, damn, they hit him and they don't hit me. I don't know what it is about the color of my hair or what it is, but other people walking through a yard will always get stung much more than me. My lady friend, my new lady, she has a grayish hair, and I don't know what she puts in it or whatever, but we'll be out in the garden even, near where we're raising queens, so they're a little bit agitated. And she's just, they always get in her hair. They just don't bother me at all. So dark curly beards, those will also attract more defense. The other thing for ladies, long dark hair that flops forward and moves will also attract them. So just wear a scarf. So I know a number of ladies that just put a scarf over their head like that, and that helps a lot. Okay, have this in your head. You are about to invade their inner sanctum. So you have different ways of doing that. I'll get to it. So first thing, tuck in your shirt. If a bee lands on your clothing, it generally will walk uphill, which means if you have open cuffs or an open t-shirt, they're going to walk up and get into your clothes. So first, tuck in your shirt. Gentlemen, check everything, close any openings. Okay. If a bee is in your veil and you see its back, it's trying to get out. It has no interest in stinging you whatsoever. Just open the veil and let it get out. If you get in the hair, there's your kamikaze bee. If it's just sitting on you just have to just pinch it and throw it away. If you get a bee in your clothing, if it wanted to sting you, it would have already stung you. So it's almost impossible to kill a bee inside your clothing by squeezing it, tightening. All you're going to do is press it against your skin, and then when you press it against your skin, you will get stung. So you just open up and let it see light, and that bee will fly out to the light. If it's inside your pants or something, just turn away from the crowd, open your pants up, and that bee will fly right out to the light. If it wanted to sting you, it would have already stung you. No sense freaking out if it's in your clothing. Yeah, a bee in your ear may be distracting. This guy, Rowdy Freeman, he's the sheriff in charge for all bee theft investigations in the state of California. Okay, and he got some training from me years ago. A bee got in his ear. We tried the usual thing with most beekeepers. What works? You go to the opposite ear and give it a good hard puff, and it'll blow it right out. But with him, that didn't work, so he had something inside there. My son Ian goes, hey, I just got this new Leatherman pliers, and sure enough, they worked to get the bee out. It went into his ear. No, the bee just walked in. The bee in your ear normally will not sting unless you try to get it out. Then it'll sting. So you're better off, it's distracting, but let it just walk back out, okay? Again, if a bee wants to sting you, it would have already done it. Okay, so it's on your body somewhere or in your clothes or in your ear. If it wanted to sting you, it would have already stung you. Here's the thing I see all the time. A beekeeper has their gear on and the neighbor or something walks over and they don't stop. If you have gear on, you don't let it get within 100 feet of you. You stop them back there. You take your gear off, you walk over there, you put the gear on them, and then come back. If you're not comfortable taking your gear off, you don't want any neighbor near you. That's the worst thing to do for getting along with your neighbors. You want to put the gear on, have your neighbors come over on a sunny day, say, oh, you want to see the queen bee? You show them the queen bee, let them have a taste of honey out of the comb, and you got a friend for life, okay? they come over and they get stung the first time, you've made a really bad mistake, okay? So never let an unveiled guest come over if you are wearing a veil. I like the jacket with the flip-up hood if I am working under, like winter conditions or something like that. Then if you notice that the bees are changing their behavior a bit, you just reach back and flip over your head for 2 minutes, however long, and you flip it back off. You don't have to have the veil on. So it's really handy having that hood that just flips over your head. The main thing is your attitude and your technique. So you can approach the bees from an adversarial approach, that you're afraid of the bees. And the whole point in my beginners classes now, I no longer go for all the stuff that you can get off the internet. I focus on how to handle bees and get people out there. In my beginner classes, by the end of the first hour, nobody's wearing any gear at all, and they're all handling bees and going through their nukes. We need the mic over here. Who's got the mic?
Yes.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, Randy, have you noticed any difference between working in the sun and working in the shade?
Oh,
with bees?
absolutely. I will
Okay.
discuss that in a minute. So adversarial approach, with the duct tape and the boots and all that, and you're thinking you're going to be fighting the bees. There's a picture of me back in the day. I learned how just to respect the bees and treat them respectfully. So this is my main thing, is the respectful approach instead. So here's adversarial hive inspection going on, full gear. And this is typical, my sons and I, if necessary, they'll put, because they tend to get stung more than me, but I'm wearing protective from the sun right here, of course. But this is typically how we work bees all summer long, just wearing minimal gear at all. And this is typically what I do with my beginners classes. Everybody gets a hand up the classes. And I find that this really just tips the class. Everybody goes, oh, well, okay, I had a different idea about bees than this. So the smoker is your main tool, the advantage that a bear or honey badger doesn't have. And what you want is white smoke. If the smoke comes out gray, it's not as effective as it is coming out white. So if my smoke turns gray, I just stop, relight, pull the fuel out, relight the smoker. I want white smoke. It doesn't take very much, a small amount, but the white smoke works much better than a gray colored smoke. Dress appropriately for the situation. So here's my sons out working in cold weather. So we make, this is the nuke making table. So we just set up a semi-line. We do it in the rain, we do it in the snow, whatever. So just dress appropriately. This is not recommended for beginners, but you can do a lot with bees if you know what you're doing. So the main thing I would do is skip the leather gloves. Those are just terrible. Let me show you a picture here. Oh. Huh. Okay, I haven't done this in a while. So first thing, honeybee sting. Get over it. If you want to be a beekeeper, you are going to get stung. If you only get stung occasionally, that predisposes you for possible full allergy and anaphylaxis. If you get stung on a regular basis all the time, very little chance of ever getting to anaphylaxis. Any commercial beekeeper who works bees all the time, if you don't get stung for a couple of days, your body starts to miss it, and you start tingling, and you go, man, I'm even talking about it right now. I start getting goosebumps, and I did get stung today. But your immune system or whatever it is needs that venom to stay in tune. So just get used to the venom. Don't try to avoid it. Just accept that, and you get like a nice feeling from that sting. Okay, that venom after the initial little bit. Okay, so learn technique by working barehanded, because the bees are such patient teachers, and when you screw up, they will remind you screwed up. Okay, and what easy thing to do is for learning, until you're comfortable working barehanded, nitrile gloves, 5 mil nitrile gloves, either white or blue. Don't use the black ones. This will prevent almost all stings. But the beauty of these is if you are pinching a bee accidentally, you feel it and you release it. Whereas with gloves, leather gloves, you don't feel that. So you never learn good technique. The worst thing you do is to start off with leather gloves because you don't learn proper handling technique. And what I like is the white ones with the 12-inch cuffs, because that way, if you do have to put a jacket on, the jacket covers the cuff. You don't get stung around the wrist. Okay, so yeah, so here's my sons making nukes in cold weather, dressed appropriately, putting on with their nitrile gloves. And people go, what? You can make nukes when it's freezing? You can just fine if you make nukes rapidly. So none of those combs are out in the cold for more than just a few seconds. It's a semi-line, very, very quick, and it's no problem with the bees. This is an old picture from Denise Qualls from her website, Pollination Connection. Avoid tight clothing, okay? Very easy for the bees to sting through tight clothing. So wear loose clothing. And at night, we avoid working after dark as much as possible. We have to move our bees. We rarely touch a beehive at night. We want to have our trucks loaded up at dusk when the last bees are coming into the hive, and we don't touch them again until after the sun has come up next day. They're a whole different animal at night. They come out, they crawl all over. All these, the recommendation in the bee books years ago when I was younger was before you move, so these big wide staples, and you pound hive staples in between the supers so they don't shift, okay? And then you pick that hive up and you put it in the back of the pickup truck, and then the people are standing in the back of the pickup truck. They don't realize there's a whole carpet of bees there, and they don't realize that you've got 50 bees up your pants legs. And the stories from beginners moving bees at night, we don't ever want to touch a hive at night. There's no reason to. Load them up at dusk, wait till morning to move. Okay, so how to do working your bees without initiating stinging. Here's Tiffany Bates from Australia, showing she's with red and black, but showing just how to move slowly and handle a comb. The trick is look at the bees, look for the bees watching you. If you have bees watching you, they are aware of you. I don't ever want to have the bees' eyes looking at me. So this is the number one thing, is learn to watch the bees. Bees have different jobs. The cleaner bees, they're nurse bees, honey processors. And then you have guards and soldiers. So the guards and soldiers are the only ones in the hive that will sting you. None of the other bees will sting you for any reason whatsoever. When you take the lid off, the only bees that are watching you will be the guards and the soldiers. So if you don't have them watching you, then nobody else is going to be interested in stinging you. The guards at the entrance at any opening will be the most defensive. And then when you take the lid off, now you have a new opening of the hive, an unusual one, and immediately you'll see bees move there and start looking at you. Those are the defenders of the hive. And what's interesting we found is when we're doing big experiments where we glued little steel discs on the backs of nurse bees. So we'd open up the hive, pick up bees out of the brood nest, put them on there, and then we wouldn't see any of those tags for the next few days at the entrance. And then suddenly, they're all the bees that we marked are at the entrance for one day. They are guards for essentially one day, and then they become foragers. So they have a very short period of time where the bees act as guards in their life, okay? Soldier bees are bees that get to forager age, but don't forage. And they just stand as reserves in there, and they get activated if there is a problem in the hive. This has been was found by Dr. Gene Robinson years ago. I've seen almost no research on this in the last 20 years about these soldier bees. It's odd that nobody's followed up on this. But there are bees that are old. If you mark them, they're old bees, but their wings don't get tattered because they don't fly. They just hang out as soldiers. So the guards initiate defense in response to sensory cues. And we've been talking about some of those sensory cues. Now, just like I remember Dick Cheney and back in the old days with our alert levels, if you've had a skunk scratching on the hive all night, they're going to be on edge next morning. If you walk up and slam your smoker down on top of the hive, which I see people do all the time, you've already put them on guard. If the weather has turned cool and all the foragers came rushing back to the hive, they're going to be way more defensive than when the foragers are outside. If you have robbing going on, they're going to be more defensive. So be aware of what the conditions are in the hive. And by all means, avoid opening a hive twice in one day. The first time the bees, and in doing research, sometimes we have to open a hive 3 or 4 times in one day, and it gets worse and worse and worse every time. So once a day, they'll tolerate you. More than once, they often will not. Okay, yeah. First thing people do wrong. Oh, bang, put the smoker down. Let me get my smoker ready. Bang, bang, bang. By the time you get to that hive, they're already on guard. So don't use the hive top assay workbench. Avoid multiple hive stands. Okay, first thing, any more than 2 hives side by side means ergonomically and hold your arms like this, which is very difficult to lift frames up. So never have more than 2 hives side by side. And if you did have these, you'd work this hive, and the vibrations would go to these hives, and these vibrations go there, and these vibrations go there. By the time you get to that hive, they're already on red alert before you even open them up. Okay, so individual hive stands or placement is the best. 2 cinder blocks on the ground is best. The other thing that people say is, Randy, looks like you're just doing Tai Chi all the time. And I move fast, but I move smoothly. So that's the thing that the bees, and you learn just how fast. So I'll be working bees like this, and I'll get a warning bump, or the weather will turn cool. And you'll just see me, my hands just slow down just a little bit. And I learn, I very quickly adjust to what speed that hive under that condition will let my hands move. So adjust your rate of movement to what they will handle, especially when it's cool. So we'll go out, we'll oxalic acid several hundred hives a day when it's cold like this, wearing no gear at all. We just move smoothly when we do it. Give them a puff of smoke when we open it up, move smoothly and close them back up. No wool, no dark colors. So it's a perfect example. Not of me, but I did this many years ago. I was out working a hive, and it went past dusk when you shouldn't be working a hive. I was dressed like this in shorts, and I started getting stung in my ankles. Nowhere up here, just my ankles. And I got a ring of stings right here and right there. Red color. What did the bees see? Black, because they don't sense red. So you have a black ring, and then they hit wool, which is mammal hair, and that's where they stung, right there at the top of the red wool socks, right there. Okay, so we do keep and breed gentle stock. There's just, beekeeping to me is not pleasurable with bees that are defensive, because you can have bees that are just gentle as pussycats. It's just so much more pleasurable. Okay, understand when bees are likely to be defensive and when not. When a swarm first lands and they're full of nectar, you can take your hand and slowly just push it all the way through and come out the other side. You won't get stung. Okay? You come back 3 days later when they've gotten hungry, and you may not be able to even get your face near that hive, that swarm, okay? Because it's a dry swarm then. So understand when bees will be defensive and when they won't. If you have a nectar dearth on, nothing blooming out here, there's probably going to be robbers coming in. And I just finished doing a ton of research on robbing guards, which we never use, but research got me really studying robbing behavior very, very, very deeply. And what we actually did is would take a dead bee and hang it by a thin monofilament fishing line, and you sway it back and forth in front of a hive. And man, some hives, then their guards will just rush out and they will attack that thing so fast. Very easy going from hive to hive and looking at the different guarding behavior on the hives. What it is that any strange bee that approaches a hive comes in with an investigatory flight. They do the same thing with a strange flower. So it's not about robbing, it's about approaching a strange source that has the right odor, okay? So I've filmed this also by taking artificial flowers out with a scent, and when they come, they do the same exact behavior. But to the guard bees, that behavior means that that bee did not come from that hive, and that initiates robbing. You can do the same thing by coming up and just taking your hands like this. And if you get bees rush out and they're following your hand like a ping pong match, you're going to have to use some smoke on that hive, okay? So if robbing is taking place, now the robbers themselves are totally non-defensive. This is not their hive. They're not defending this hive. I came home from another trip, and I pulled in the driveway, and the front of the honey house has a gazillion bees swarming. They had gotten in the door. Don't have to put a veil on it, put anything else. Went in there, worked with them, okay? Just breathe a little more slowly, closed everything up like that. They are totally non-defensive. There's a ton of bees, but unless you are pressing against your skin, they're not going to sting you because they're not interested. They're not attacking. Robbers don't attack. They're just foragers looking for something easy to get. So, but the guard bees down here for this hive, they can become very defensive then. So robbing is from the guard bees, not from the robbers. Okay, back to your question, shade. When we pull up to the yard and the hives are in the shade, all the crew goes, oh crap. I think I have a veil behind the seat, and they start digging behind the seat of the trucks to see if they have a bee veil, because we know if we have hives in the shade, they're gonna be way more defensive than hives out in the sun. So if you're placing your home apiary and you have a tree, have the shade in the afternoon, but let them have the morning sun and work them when the sun's on the hive. Hives in the shade will always be way more defensive than hives in the sun. If there's been skunks scratching at the hives overnight, they're going to be defensive. If you've got wasps at the entrance, they're going to be defensive. So what you want to do is work your hives when the older bees are out of the hive foraging. Now, if you have a hive, so here's well, who can diagnose this colony right now? Close, laying workers close. You see the drone brood scattered right here. So what would be the other thing besides laying worker that would do that? Not a bad mated queen. A queen that's older and has run out of sperm. She starts laying unfertilized eggs. And I think I didn't. You see her abdomen right there. So it's a queen right colony, but the queen got older, ran out of sperm. And what's this got to do with handling bees? What's it have to do with handling bees? There's no young bees in this hive. Every bee in this hive is an older bee because there's nobody hatching out. So this hive will often be much more defensive than a hive with a bunch of young bees. And when we're doing mite washes, where you shake combs of bees off into a tub, if all the bees fly out of the tub, you go, oh, that colony is probably queenless or has some issue, and these are all going to be old bees, and it's going to be a more defensive colony. You want to, if you shake the bees in there and 2/3 of them remain in the tub, you go, wow, good laying queen, lots of young bees in this hive. Very easy way to diagnose a hive just by shaking a comb into a tub. Other trick, I was talking to you about this one. If you have a hot hive and you want to requeen it, do not do it in place. Pick up the boxes one at a time and carry them 10 to 30 feet away from the parent hive, and then kick them. Any bee that's going to sting you will fly back to the home site, and all you got left is just young bees. Really easy then to find the queen. So when we're making nukes, we don't get stung at all splitting them up. The person who's carrying them over from the parent stand, they have to put on full gear because all the bees at the parent stand, even if the hive's not there, are come back and they will be defensive. So if you have defensive hive and you want to requeen it, move it away from the home stand. And some nectars make bees pissies. This is almond orchards here. So these trees are just coming in bloom. These are in full bloom here. Almonds put out pollen first and nectar several days later. When they're putting out the pollen, the bees are just pussycats. You can go in their hives, nothing wrong. When you show up at the almond orchard and try just getting out of the truck and the bees start stinging you, that means they very, very defensive. So it's just like a night and day change in all your colonies in the almond orchards. And some pesticides will do the same thing. But many places in the world, Australia, I visited beekeepers there. They go, oh man, when this eucalyptus comes into bloom, man, you just got to put all your gear on. So certain plants, nectars or pollens can be very irritating to the bees. And then alarm pheromone just changes the game immediately. And we get a lot of people who want to come out and be helpers. In our operation, my sons would just go, oh no, Dad, not another helper. Where's my gear? Because the helpers will just make it miserable for us because they initiate stinging in the hive. So they just don't know the technique. They don't know the timing, when to put the puff of smoke on. They don't recognize when one puff of smoke properly timed will avert a problem from happening. And it's like maybe a 2-second decision that you have to make of when you want to put a bit of smoke on. And we do not over smoke our hives. You don't ever have to put smoke into the center of the cluster. It only has to be on the periphery very, very lightly. Focus on the guard bees. The bees that are looking at you are the ones that have their front legs up and their wings cocked. Those are the ones that are ready to defend. Birds, the periphery of the cluster, you don't ever need to smoke the core of the combs. I got asked by Cornell University to do a series to film doing a hive inspection. And they handed me a script. And they said, okay, take the top box off and then pull all the frames of the lower box out one at a time and inspect them, then do the top box. And I go, you got to be kidding me. No, whoever wrote this script has no idea how to handle bees whatsoever. And I threw it away and I said, I'll show you. So, and then they also said, oh yeah, by the way, we went through these hives yesterday and the frames are all out of order. So there may be the brood frame in the wrong place. I go, oh, great. Thanks a whole lot. So, and then they said, well, put your gear on. I said, no, you want me to do a demonstration, right? So I said, no, I'm not going to wear any gear. And I then did all the hive inspections for them. But you know what you're doing. I couldn't believe they wrote a script for an instructional video that had no idea how to handle bees whatsoever. So this is where you have way more guards than you have up here. There's no reason for older bees to be up in the upper box. All the older bees are foragers, which never have to touch a honeycomb. So there are some older bees up there, but that's the foragers do not put the nectar into the honeycomb. Okay, the foragers give the nectar to the mid-age bees, which are right near the entrance, and the mid-age bees carry it up here. So the most defensive bees are in the lower box. It's okay to blow on a comb of bees to get the nurse bees away so you can see eggs. If you're at the entrance and you have a guard looking at you, probably not a good idea to give them mammal breath right there, okay? So watch the bees. Are they watching you? Do they respond to your movements if you move your hand? Are they jittery? Look at their wings. If their wings are jittery at all, they're going to be defensive. Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, you were talking about the more defensive bees being down in the lower box. Do you ever separate the boxes when you're doing an inspection, like pull off the upper brood box and move it to like right next door so you can work on it, not be causing vibration in the...
So inspection, that's an interesting word. So how long do you think it takes us to do a hive inspection?
Couple minutes at the most.
15 seconds?
Yeah, okay.
Hive inspection, we learn everything we want to see in 15 seconds. Okay, you just pull a center brood frame out of the top box. You can learn pretty much anything you need. Rarely do we have to pull more than 1 or 2 frames out of a box. So often we've done the inspection before the bees even realize they're in there and your lid's back on there. So now if you're doing more serious work inside there, yeah, you sort of do that. More serious work in there. Get away from all the bees are going to sting you. Are going to fly back to the parent location. Yeah, pay attention to warning bumps. Okay, that means slow down or a little bit more smoke. And if you smell alarm pheromone, just stop. So we often will have a group of us on the crew in a crowded yard of a bunch of hives. We may often work until dusk. Now, right at dusk, when those last foragers are coming back, there's a tip point, okay? And I'll say, okay, guys, we got maybe 2 more hives we can inspect. So we're all inspecting hives, okay? And they go, okay. I said, slow down. And we'll do 1 more. And they'll say, you're right. We're not going to do another hive. All the bees, all the hives in the yard, they all at the same time as the sun starts to go down say, no, we will not tolerate inspection anymore. So know your timing on that. And if I say, okay, everybody stop, there's no questions asked at all. That means that I smell the alarm pheromone, which means that anybody in that yard is going to get stung if you start moving. So you just wait till that alarm pheromone dissipates. So we'll just chat for a minute. I'll say, okay, puff of smoke, let's go back to work. So be aware of this. Don't push the bees. So the only bees in the hive that will sting you are these guys with their faces looking at you. Okay? That means they're aware of you. So white smoke. Okay. I would never reach down to touch a comb there. Question?
Oh.
Hang on, you
Wait.
need the microphone.
Thank you.
When you say you smell alarm pheromone, are you talking about bananas?
Yeah, it smells like kind of like an apple banana smell. Isoamyl acetate is the ester. So I would never reach down to touch a comb right here. There's too many bees on top. You know, a little bit of smoke, still not quite yet. And now, when there's no bees, you don't see any faces, you got the bees off here. Now you can reach down to touch a comb. So there's no rush to get in there. Get the bees off the top bars. Okay? And again, if you get stung, stop. Shaking bees off. Comb does not elicit defensive behavior at all. This is not about it. We routinely shake bees off. Okay, hive inspection. You are the aggressor. There's no such thing as aggressive bees. They are defensive bees. They're defending their colony. So understand the cues. Okay, start off a small colony. So I just had this talk. Right now, we're just starting selling our nukes. So I tell the beginners, so the last thing you want to do as a beginner is to start with a big nuke full of sealed brood because they're going to explode in a big colony. Ask for a weak nuke to start off with so you can learn handling technique on that nuke. So we have a Saturday morning, this Saturday, we'll have a lineup with signs. We'll have 30 cars in a row and we'll be selling a few hundred nukes coming out there. And the first question the boys ask is, you a beginner or you experienced beekeeper? Okay, if you're a beginner, we'll pick up a nuke from this side. If you're experienced beekeeper, we'll pick up a nuke from this side and we'll give you a warning. This nuke's going to have to be in a bigger box within 2 days and you probably have to feed it right now. Okay, the hobby beekeeper will give a weaker nuke that's not going to need a lot of care. And then you can learn to work and watch it grow, watch the queen expand out, watch them draw comb, all those things you want to learn before you have a big booming colony that's going to be hard to handle. But large colonies, a lot less forgiving to learn to work with. So approach slowly and observe the entrance first. Okay, nectar flow on. Look at the distended abdomens of these bees coming back. They're coming back, their abdomens full of nectar. They will be pussycats. Won't bother you at all. The crop is right here. When the crop is distended with nectar, it's fatter than they're flying out. You know a lot about what's happening. So take a look at the entrance first. No nectar flow coming on, returning bees. Look how close the bands are on their abdomens. This is a hungry hive. This will be defensive. Okay? Okay, see if there's any guards on duty. Come up and see if there's any bees facing out, responding to incoming bees. If they're responding to incoming bees, then there are guards on. With the nectar flow on, generally there's almost no guarding behavior at all. So it tells you what you can expect of that hive before you even open it up. If you're not sure, wave your hand this motion, about like this. That is the waving flight of an investigating bee. If they respond to this motion, then you know that they are going to be more defensive. So a little bit of smoke to the guards. Now, colonies breathe in, which means they also have to breathe out, and they do it pretty much at the same time. So understand the direction of it. If you put a puff of smoke right here and it blows out, it doesn't do anything because no bee ever smells that smoke. You make a big scene, but if you see the smoke all around the front of the hive, it hasn't done a thing inside the hive. If instead you put a little tiny puff of smoke on this side where it's sucking in, then that little tiny puff is all you need in the hive. Okay, so when you do the little puff of smoke, be aware of it. There's no reason to go puff, puff, puff into the entrance. You don't have to immerse the bees in smoke. Yeah.
I noticed that none of your hives have any closing down mechanism on them. They're all fully open. When do you close down the entrance to the hive? And what's the advantage of that, or is there an advantage?
We don't, just because if I were a hobbyist, I would close it down during the wintertime when it's cooler, or if there's robbing going on and it's not too hot. The bees do not need much entrance at all. It just so happens that we built all of our hives with, I think if I were going to do it again, I wouldn't use a 3/4 inch bee way. I started doing that because pine bee ways, after a few years, crush down, and pretty soon you got your bottom of your combs touching your bottom board. But so if we use a redwood bee way now, and we hot dip it in wax, and they don't ever shrink down. But if I had known that, I probably would have done our operation, which is the 3/8 inch high bee ways. During the winter, 3 inches wide, 3/8 inch high is all they need to go in or out for winter. For during the summer, they need a little bit more room for ventilation, not much. You do not need screen for ventilation. I was showing a picture just yesterday to a group of a big beard, hot weather and beard in the front. I said, okay, this answers your question, how much ventilation they need during the summer. Take a look. And you can see through that beard, there were 2 little tiny holes about this big. That's all the bees are telling you how much ventilation they need. They need almost no room for ventilation during the summer. So putting vents at the top, putting screens at the bottom, the bees do not need any of that at all. They control the airflow very well by themselves with a couple of little holes. Now, as we lift the lid up, smoke immediately right here. We do not take the lid off and then smoke. Use the lid to direct the smoke over all the top bars with 1 puff. Okay, then you lift the lid up, look to see if all the guards are down there. If they're not, 1 more puff of smoke. Just a little light puff is all it takes to turn their heads around. Now, I see beginners do this all the time. They put on the show of smoking, but they don't account for the wind. None of that smoke ever touched the bee. It hit the bees right here, but no bees right here. And then I did the smoking, boom, bang, and they get stung. Okay, you gotta make sure the smoke actually touches the bee and the bees respond to it. And then you wanna make sure there's no response to your hand motion.
You were showing adding smoke to the side. You're using migratory covers. What about for us that use the inner cover?
Yeah, so I would just put the puff in through the hole in the inner cover before you take the inner cover off. Good point, Tom, thanks. And then use all your senses. Look to see if their wings are jiggling. Listen to the sound. The sound's going to tell you a whole lot, whether you have a queenless roar, which means they are queenless. If there's any kind of much response to the smoke, that means they're more on edge. The jittery wings, the smell of alarm pheromone, really learn, to bees, learn how to read them. When you're going to lift up a comb, I call these queen killers. Not the ones that stick out from the comb that you're lifting up, but the ones that are left. So when you pull that comb up, they roll down and roll all the bees, and you come up with the queen with the guts hanging out, okay? So frame to be lifted right here, you cut on this side and on this side. You can take this off also, but these are not going to roll anybody because you're going to lift that comb up. It's the ones that are sticking out from the other combs that are going to roll the bees when you lift it up. Okay, first thing I would suggest, we always run 10 frames in a brood box, and we always squeeze them tight together every time before we put lids on. Now you have proper bee spacing. All your combs will be straight and even, and you'll always have 3/4 of an inch. You're going to have 3/8 of an inch on each side, so a total of 3/4 of an inch. And we will often just pry all 10 frames over, and then you pull this one back or this one back, and you have a big space to pull the first one out. Mistake that many beekeepers make, they let the comb space out, and then they're too tight together, hard to take out. Then don't grasp outside, grasp inside the end bars, and put your fingers all the way down until you feel the bottom edge of the wood, so you get a good grip there. And then I should have brought a comb. Learn to do this motion right here, where you can hold the frame. If you feel the bees, you're going to let go with these two because this finger is holding under the ear. And I have all my beginners do this to show me they can do this motion here. Okay, so the first frame comes up very, very slowly. I'll even give you another handling tip. I'm not showing this here. When I lift a comb up, the first comb, this is where people have a problem. You grab this and it's got purpose out, you're pulling that first one out, and I lift like this. I push down with my middle finger. I do all my lifting with my middle finger. I don't use my back muscles at all. It's very easy to blow your back muscles out, trying to lift that first frame out of the propolis. If you're bending over and pulling up, all the muscles here. If you just put your middle finger down and push there, you're only using this muscle right here, which is your extension muscle for your middle finger, and it comes right up with no back strain at all. So get that up. Now, the mistake that beginners make all the time is they get about this far out, and then they tip it, and they drag all the bees there. And I can hear it 10 feet behind my back. It's, you just drug that comb. Stop it. And they go, how could you tell? I said, I can hear it from here. Okay? So make sure you go all the way up clear before you, with that first comb, and don't drag the bees. And then a very quick, a puff of smoke down in the gap right there, because you have disturbed those bees. That's the most important puff of smoke in there when you pull your first comb out. And then when we're handling bees, if we wanted to get one of these brood combs out, we'll take out maybe an outer comb, then we'll just shove all the other of these over. We do not shove combs one at a time. Every time you shove a comb over, you have a chance of crushing the queen on the end bars when they come back together. So it's much safer to move 3 or 4 combs at one time together. And immediately look for the queen on the next frame. 50% of the time, the queen will be on the opposite side of the comb than the side you're looking at. And that's mathematically demonstrated, okay? The bee. So that first glance, you often see the queen. And we keep the, okay, keep the frames tight together, and we always never leave more than take more than 2 frames out of a hive. These people put combs on a hanger or something. That's just totally stupid, because you wind up with, it's very disrespectful to the bees and everything else. You wind up with clumped up bees and all that. Just keep them all together and keep the combs pressed together, and the bees don't notice you're in there. Now, as you are cracking your second box up, immediate smoke as soon as you start to crack that right there. That delay can, if you try to lift it off and then wait to smoke it, that is often initiate stinging. The worst thing is if you lift it up and you pull some frames up like this, especially 1 or 2 frames, you just put it down and walk away. Okay, other than that, you got a puff smoke in there. That is really gets defensive behavior going. If, because of the combs, the burr combs of the top bars sticking to the bottom bars, and you lift these frames up and they go down, that just really makes the hive get very defensive. One of the tricks is, when I lift the second box up, I put my hive tool over, and I pry sideways with it, and so the top box shears over that way, and that just shears off into that comb, and then you pick it right up. So before it gets this high, so when I am lifting the top box up, I put my hive tool sideways, and I pry it over. So before it lifts, it moves about 3/4 inch sideways, and then it lifts up very clean, so it shears any bird comb off. Don't put anything in front of the hive, especially African ice bees. I learned that down in Arizona. Anything put in front of the hive can elicit immediately major defense behavior. Okay, if you want to look inside the cells, if you want to look for eggs, you want to get the sun shining in the bottom of the cells. If you look for the sun to locate it, once you locate the sun, you won't be able to see anything. Okay, so instead, look for the shadow of your head. What I found is when you have the shadow of your head directly in front of you, the sun is invariably directly behind your back. Okay, which means that you can see right here, you're going to have the sun going right into the cells and make it very easy to see. If you have dappled sunlight in trees, I just look for a sunspot, hold this frame, and when you see the shadow of the frame in the sunspot, you know that you're going to be able to see the eggs in the bottom of the cells. And work quickly. Bees will only tolerate so much. I already mentioned the quick hive inspection, okay? When I have beginners classes and I take time, I say, okay, well, we've had enough time in this hive. Let's leave them alone now. Yeah.
Okay, you've pulled out a frame or two very carefully, and you're not going to use that metal hook that you hook over the edge of the box to hang a frame.
Right.
Where do you put those frames?
I stand. You can do it if you can do that if you want to put one frame in it. I wouldn't move them all out there. Okay. We just stand a frame up on end, so with the top bar resting against the hive, so you don't crush any bees. Okay. But and put it where it's not going to get in your way. You can't have if the hive's like this here and you're picking up frames like this, don't put it on the side hanging over where the next frame is going to hit it when it stands up. Put it like on the opposite side and make sure when it leans over, you don't crush any bees. Okay, if the bees ball up on this comb that you have out, I was in the East Coast and they drove me out at the end of a demonstration by their mentor, full leather gloves, full gears, duct tape and all that. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a problem with a mentor who dresses up like that. He has the one brood comb, center brood comb out, big ball of bees on it, and he's picking it up, he's going to just shove it right in. I go, sir, you see the queen of that frame, right? Oh, yeah, okay. Good way to kill a queen, okay? If she's in this ball of bees and you just shove it in, it's going to hurt them. Just shake the bees off first. Doesn't bother the bees at all. So if you have a ball of bees on there, just shake them off, and then a relatively bee-free comb you put right back in without hurting the queen. Avoid crushing the bees between the end bars. And main tip is avoid rushing the queen, okay? With my beginners classes, I used to just, if I'd have 20 people in the class, I'd put out 20 nucleus hives, and everybody have a chance to do a inspection of their nucleus hive, nice and slowly. And what I found after several years, I go out the next day, often 25% of the queens are dead. Year after year, okay? This is how brutal beginners are on combs. Even if they think they're working very slowly and all that, it's all about technique to avoid killing the queen. So these are called Hoffman's self-spacing end bars, that's the standard end bar you get, where this is the spacing for bee space with the comb, and they're smaller right there. When you are putting them in, line up this edge with that edge there, and then as they go in, instead of going down and over and pinching a queen and bees when they're running around the end bars, that pushes them out of the way going down. So that tip will help you to save queens. If I am going to do serious work, as Tom said, if you're going to go through all the combs looking for something or move them around, you know it's disruptive. If you just tap a queen on her butt and make her run, her bees, it's not unusual to see her bees jump her and they may ball her and kill her. Okay, just because of her unusual behavior. Okay, so if I'm going to do anything major or combine bees in a colony or something like that, I'll just pick the queen up, put her in a cage. I always carry the JZ's Bees' cages in my pocket, and I'll stuff a blade of grass or a clover leaf or something in there as a temporary plug. If you're over 40, don't put it in your pockets. You're going to forget to put the queen back into the hive, okay? So, put her out, not in the sun, but you can just press her against the comb, and then just stick her back in when you're all done with all your brutality in that hive with that blade of green grass in there. And because you probably don't have a marshmallow on you for a time release. And then that blade of grass has to wilt before the bees can pull it out. By that time, they've all calmed down. The queen walks out and everything is fine. So just carrying a JZ's BC cage with you all the time is really handy for protecting your queens. Oh, huge thing. Be careful tasting honey. Between here and here, it's very common for a bee to land on that honey. And if you're not watching your finger the whole time, you will get stung in the mouth regularly. When I was fairly young, I was selling some nukes to a guy from Russia who was starting an operation. And I scooped it out and started to taste honey. And he grabbed my arm and said, "Don't." I go, "What?" When he was young in Russia, his mentor, beekeeper, did that. Bee landed on here, took it inside, and instead of it stinging his mouth, he actually inhaled it. It stung him in the windpipe, and the kid watched him die before his eyes. Yeah. Yeah. So that was not a pleasant experience for him, so for either of them. So be very careful putting honey from a comb into your mouth. The bees will, I've been stung many times in the mouth from not paying attention. Yeah, experiential learning, none of that. And that's it. Let's see.
Hi, last time I saw you present at the club, you were reporting on a program that you had to develop hygienic bees.
Resistant bees.
Resistant
Mite
bees?
resistant bees.
Can you give us an update on that?
It's going very well. It goes slowly. It's very hard to fix the genetics. We don't not yet have a single bloodline yet that we've identified that breeds true, which means we have it, everything we need in our gene pool, but it apparently depends upon mating with the right drones in that gene pool. So across the board, last year we released them for the first time commercially, large scale, and we've gotten feedback from all over the country and Canada. So I've been asking the beekeepers to check. So I've gotten reports from others, and they get exactly the same results I'm getting. About a third of them need no treatment whatsoever for varroa. A third of them need maybe one treatment a year, and the rest may need 2 or more treatments per year. So we have our breeder queens at home right now. We breed off about 25 or 30 a year. We choose the best ones. We like the ones, we have 5 mite counts over the course of the year, plus 1 in the springtime. And we like the 5 zeros, what we call the 5 zeros, where we never found a single mite in 5 mite washes over the course of the year. But some of them have, a count of 1 here or there at various times. Feedback, the question always was, we didn't know because we breed in the foothills where there's not big honey crops. We didn't know how they're going to perform where there's large honey crops. So reports back from Canada and the Northwest is they kicked butt. We were very happy to hear. So, and the other thing is that reports from everybody is just, wow, these are the gentlest bees we've ever seen. So there's no trade-off for mite resistance in either gentleness or productivity. So it's, and that was a big gamble on our part this last year. I told my sons, let's see how they work elsewhere with the feedback. Well, Ray Oliveras, who is producing them commercially for us, he just called my son and said, guys, we could sell 5,000 of your queens a week right now. The orders are just off the charts, okay, based upon the experience from last year, which is exactly what I was, hoping for, obviously. So we're going to have to gear up to we're not, where we live is too late in the season for mating for the early queens. And that's not our gig, is mass producing queens for sale. We do nukes and we do the breeding. So we're going to focus on the breeding, let Ray focus on the production, but we oversee the production to make sure that they were asking, well, can we outmate your queens to ours and sell them? I said, no, you got to use our grown mothers to do it and get the genetics. So I think this is the ninth year we're going on. So we had one hive out of 1,500 when we started that was resistant. Now we have about 33% of our hives. So progress, slow, but we're happy with it. Anyways, it's changed our whole beekeeping. Burrow management is just so much easier across the board when most all the hives are resistant.
More basic question. I'm no longer strong enough to shake a frame and get the bees off of it. So what's my alternative?
Bar that sticks out, that goes down and go bang on the end bar.
Okay, that's what
Not
that's
on the
okay.
side,
Right.
but just hit not on the bottom of the frame, but hit that strong end bar. One little tap like that will knock
Okay,
all the
that's
bees
what
out.
I've been doing. That's good.
Yeah. And then if you do 2 taps, don't do it in the same place because you might hit the queen. Okay, so you do 1 tap and then you back up and do another tap.
Not against the hive.
Not normally against the hive. What we usually do is we'll take, if our hives are we run our hives on the ground. So we just will take a lid or a bottom board, put it in front of the hive, and you tap onto that. That's also a really easy way to look for a queen. So you just tap it on there and the bees will fan out and then they'll all turn and they'll all walk in the hive. Very easy to spot the queen that way. So if we use that technique, let's just say we have a few nukes and our young hives and one of them is weak and one's super strong, well, we'll pull a frame of young bees out of the strong hive. And we don't want to put foragers in there because they're all going to fly back. So if you just shake bees in, you don't know how many bees are going to stay. But if you take it and go bang on the lid laid on the ground, all the foragers fly away immediately, fly back to the parent hive, and you know that every bee that's going to walk in there is a young bee that's going to stay in that hive. So now you know how many bees are going to stay. Plus, you go, oh, good, no queen. Really easy to make sure you don't get a queen and separate the bees by age. You guys maybe get that feeling that it's all about little tiny tricks and techniques in handling to make it look so easy with beekeeping. Yeah.
What are you looking for, or paying attention to in your 15 seconds?
1, if they have enough food, if they had a honey ban. 2, if they have surplus pollen and bee bread, which means that they probably have enough nutrition. And then number 3, at the brood pattern, to see if you have a larval mortality. So if you have spotty brood, then you want to look back and see why you have spotty brood. If the brood pattern is solid, you go, hey, there's no brood disease. Those 3 things are pretty much it. Bing, bing, bing. It's queen right, good larval survival, adequate honey, adequate pollen. What else do you want to know?
One question from the Zoom. Do you recommend screen bottom boards?
I don't make any recommendations. We were one of the first adopters of screen bottom boards. I built 500 of them. Years ago, we were phasing them all out. So we use them if you're doing sticky board counts, then you have to have a screen bottom board. Other than that, we haven't found them to be any advantage and several disadvantages to them.
As far as your resistant queens, you get 1 generation 1 year. What happens when they swarm with the?
The first thing, there's no such thing as a resistant queen. Queen's got nothing to do with the resistance. It's her daughters that are resistant. Okay? Don't know. Don't know what happens with the swarm. Where we live, any feral bees living around either are one of two things. They're from our stock, or if they made it through the winter, they're resistant. So no non-resistant stock makes it through the winter. So there's no drones the next season from non-resistant stock
In your area.
in pretty much any area, because if the stock was not resistant, it wouldn't make it through the winter. So that's why, and there's many people in the Bay Area here, and in other areas that are breeding with feral stock, keeping feral bees, and if it's not diluted too much, that people bring in non-resistant stock from most of the commercial stock is non-resistant. We call it mite candy, one of the terms. I shouldn't put that on video. Yeah, and if you're mating with them, you're not going to be resistant. But with us, we figure, or I figure, that if they made it through the winter, through our winter, that they're going to be resistant. So I'm not too concerned.
Any other questions, or from the Zoom, you can come off mute if you have a question. Well, thank you so much, Randy.
You bet.